It's springtime, you're outside more, it is time for sunscreen. But stay away from the chemical sunscreens with ingredients that can irritate skin, cause hormonal disruption, or worse. Instead, use mineral sunscreen by Ginger Armor, which is just as effective. You'll get 15% off with code PACMAN at gingerarmor.com. The link is down below. Given what's going on in the news today, it will be a Trump-heavy program, but we are going to start by talking about Joe Biden, the current president. But before I even get to that, I have to make a really important correction on the show. As all of you know, if you've been around the show for a while, I am not working with a teleprompter, Obama's teleprompter. No, I am mostly working off of general notes when I talk. And the other day, speaking off the cuff about Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s presidential candidacy, I wrongly said that the Children's Defense Fund is the anti-vaccine organization he started. It is not. The correct organization that Bobby Kennedy started is the Children's Health Defense. Children's Defense Fund is in no way affiliated and is not an anti-vaccine organization. I got that wrong. And I want to correct that. I heard from Children's Defense Fund, and I'm glad to issue that correction today. Let's talk about President Joe Biden. We have such an unusual situation happening in the 2024 presidential race, and particularly within the Republican primary, that Joe Biden really needs to do only one thing to win in 2024, and that is to not screw up. David, screw up. That's not very precise language. What I mean specifically is that Joe Biden needs to avoid self-inflicted errors, and he will have, I believe, a relatively clear path to re-election in 2024, despite all of the criticisms I've had of Joe Biden, despite concerns among many about his age. If he can manage not to, quote, screw up, I believe that he is going to get reelected. Now, you might be thinking, David, that's very obvious. How does that count as any kind of political analysis at this point in time? Of course, he shouldn't mess up. But let me explain why this is so crucial in this particular situation. First of all, what about problems that aren't Joe Biden's doing? Without ignoring the human tragedy of crises, we know from looking at history that often major crisis events like 9/11 help the president in power, to the extent that George W. Bush did not heed warnings about 9/11. Like, we can talk about to what degree 9/11 could be blamed on Bush to some degree. That's not what I'm trying to do today. But the point is, after 9/11, the country rallied around Bush, and he had a record high approval before invading the, quote, wrong country and squandering the approval. So Joe Biden doesn't have to worry from a political perspective about tragic events beyond his control. He should, of course, work to prevent any tragedy that is preventable without a doubt. But we're speaking politically here. So then you get to the Republican Party. Biden doesn't have to be amazing to win in 2024. He has to be better than the alternatives. He has to be more stable than the alternatives. And the alternatives are as much of a mess as I have ever seen. The Republican Party is in disarray. There is no coherent vision. There is no coherent agenda. You have a party divided between, do we want more Trump as the Magadonians or Magats do? Or do we realize that Trump has been a disaster in 2018, in 2020, in 2022, and we have to go a different way? Either way, you have a Republican Party that mostly exists publicly to oppose what Biden does and say it's all terrible and do anti-woke culture war nonsense. Many still loyal to Donald Trump, now under 2 indictments for classified documents federally, and then the hush money situation in New York, possibly more forthcoming indictments. And then he's running again, despite the fact that he is not particularly popular nationally. He is still extraordinarily popular as the cult leader that he has become among the MAGA people. He's actively trying to sabotage any potential rivals. And in the meantime, you actually have a pretty solid Republican candidate by the old standards of the party in Chris Christie, who is polling at last check. Chris Christie is polling, where is he? 1.2%. His big announcement last week got him from 1% to 1.2%. So Biden can win simply by not messing up. The economy has to be okay, and it is. People have to believe that, but the economy has to be okay, and it is. He has to be decent. He has to be stable. And that's basically what we need from Biden in order to see him win. And if you look at recent highly rated general election polls nationally, you see Morning Consult from a few days ago. You see Biden's leading DeSantis by 3 and Biden's leading Trump by 2. These are not blowout numbers at this point in time, but it is really important to understand that what's going on in the Republican primary may dissuade turnout in a way that is not reflected in the polls. And the presence of Trump as the nominee, who seems like a shoo-in at this point, although we'll see what happens, okay? I'm keeping an open mind. At this point, Trump seems like a shoo-in. If Trump is the nominee, there is an intangible group of people that will come out and say, I'm not that engaged in politics, but we can't have Trump back again. And that is not reflected in the polls either. So my sense right now is that Joe Biden, if he doesn't get in his own way, has a relatively unobstructed path to re-election. Whether I love Joe Biden as a candidate is irrelevant. You all know that I would like to see a different candidate if it was up to me. But I am also going to give you analysis that is based on what we have. And there is no indication. I mean, I don't want to be dark, but unless Joe Biden dies, he's going to be the Democratic nominee. I want debates. I want candidates. I would love the DNC to hold debates. They're not going to. It's not up to me. I can't do anything to change that. That is my sense of this race right now. And over the next 48 hours, we will see Donald Trump go to Miami, get arrested, booked, arraigned once again. He will then speak from Bedminster tomorrow night. We're going to cover all of it. And we are going to see, how do the other Republican candidates react to that? How does Joe Biden react? I assume Joe Biden will continue saying absolutely nothing about it, which I like. I like that Biden is saying, I don't have anything to do with this. Independent prosecutors and investigators are doing what they think they need to do based on the evidence. I like Biden staying out of it and governing. That is the starkest and most productive contrast that Joe Biden can provide at this point in time. Don't screw up. Could always say that that's what they need to do, but it is so particularly important right now. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you agree with this assessment. Donald Trump is getting indicted on 37 counts. And he is facing a hypothetical 536 years in prison, and some of his lawyers have quit. I am now going to catch you up on what is going on with Donald Trump. We had some of the information last week. We now have more. Trump charged with 37 counts in classified documents case, indictment says. Among other allegations, the indictment says Trump showed classified documents to other people in the summer of 2021 after leaving office. The indictment was made public a day after the grand jury charged Trump. 2 of Trump's lawyers resigned from representing him in the classified documents case and in another pending federal criminal investigation into his efforts to overturn the loss in 2020. Mediaite reporting, Trump maximum sentences add up to a staggering 536 years in prison for all counts. I tell you this not to trick you into thinking Trump might end up spending this much time in prison or any time in prison at all. I still believe the most likely outcome at greater than 50% odds is that Trump will spend no time in prison. I tell you this to tell you the severity of the totality of what Donald Trump has been charged with. So I want to talk about a few different things here. I'm not going to do a deep dive legal analysis because I'm not a lawyer. And there are many lawyers who can do the deep dive legal analysis. I'm going to give you an analysis of the politics that is surrounding what is going on here. Number one, there are so many of you who have written to me and have said, David, sir, some less politely, but many of you referring to me as sir, saying, this is it, right? The Trumpists now are going to abandon Trump. And the answer is absolutely not. Luke the Bee's Knees Beasley is going to be on the ground for us tomorrow in Miami interviewing Trump supporters. And you are going to see, not only are they not abandoning Trump, they are flocking to his defense. The one remaining analysis that is valid for what we are now seeing, the defenses of Trump from the MAGA cultists, is the cult analysis. 3 books, which I recommended on my live stream over the weekend, if you want to understand what is going on with Trumpists, are 3 books by the great nonfiction author Jeff Gwynne. Jeff Gwynne wrote a book about Charles Manson, the leader of the family, who died in prison some years ago. Jeff Gwynne wrote a book about Jim Jones, the cult leader of the People's Temple. That was the murder-suicide involving the, quote, Kool-Aid that so many people have heard of. And then David Koresh of the Branch Davidians in Waco, his most recent book, is about that. It is impossible, as I recently read Waco and have previously read the other books, it is impossible to read those books and not see Trumpism in the descriptions of the cultists and the cult loyalty that we see or we saw to Koresh, Jones, and Manson. That is the most important analysis as far as what we are seeing from the Trump supporters. So then let's continue. You are going to hear defenses of Trump from cultists, but also from Republican hacks who do this for a living. You are going to hear all sorts of claims about how this isn't really that serious and there's really nothing here. And what about Hillary and what about Hunter, etc. The brazen nature of that which Trump is accused of, credibly, we see evidence in the indictment. Trump not cooperating on the classified documents, moving documents around seemingly to evade law enforcement, spending months refusing to turn documents over. We found that the surveillance room was flooded by a Mar-a-Lago employee when they drained a pool into the surveillance room, although they say that was not deliberate, but it is extraordinarily suspicious. Retention of classified documents, showing people classified documents who don't have proper security clearances. Trump has lied about every aspect of this. He said, I declassified everything telepathically or whatever, but there are recordings of Trump saying, I can't show you these documents because they're classified, meaning he knew that he didn't actually declassify them. So there are many charges under the espionage, et cetera, and we will leave it to the legal experts to give you the bottom line on that. You can make the argument, and I would defend the argument, that we have a problem in the United States with overclassification of documents. We've talked about it before. That's not an argument I'm afraid of, but we are talking about very serious stuff right here. Documents related to military capabilities, weapons capabilities, about the U.S. and other countries. If Obama had done this, they would be saying it's treason and it should be the death penalty. Do not be confused for even a moment. We don't know what Trump's motive was. We just don't know at this time. Why was he keeping these documents? One of the things we do know, based on the pictures that have been released, is that Donald Trump was keeping these documents in boxes in his bathroom. By the way, I've told you before, money can't buy class. Trump's bathroom for a rich guy is just, it's all crazy. Okay. Every detail of this is insane, but he had documents in the bathroom. He had documents in his bedroom. It's all completely whacked. Another defense that you're hearing is that these are technical crimes, process crimes. Trump hasn't been given due process, but the very same people saying that were demanding Hillary Clinton be jailed absent any evidence of criminality, absent an indictment, absent an adjudication, a conviction, and a sentencing. They were saying just do not pass go, do not collect $200, go straight to prison. The very same people saying, I'm for law and order, were saying that, or said lock up Joe Biden or whatever. And you've got pictures of Trump's bathroom stuffed with boxes. We have recorded conversations. They want Hunter Biden jailed. And yet we have nothing on Hunter Biden that is even close to what this indictment reveals they have on Trump. So you're going to see those people and those very same people making these defenses might show up tomorrow to riot outside the Miami courthouse. I hope that doesn't happen, but Trump and others have been I guess there's really no other word other than they've been inciting individuals to go to Miami tomorrow. We saw Mark Levin's delusional rant on Fox News saying, how dare they, indignant, how dare they do this to Trump? And it's really important to remember that not only are these serious charges and not only do they seem to have Trump dead to rights, pictures, audio recordings, all of it. One of the other important things to think about when it comes to this situation is that this actually shows us we might have accountability in a justice system that does have 2 tiers. The 2 tiers aren't Democrats and Republicans. Republicans are now saying it's a 2-tier justice system where if you're a Trump supporter, there's different rules. No, the 2-tier justice system we've had in this country for a long time is everybody else. And then the wealthy and the elite who get the best, most expensive lawyers, they don't have pretrial detention, either because it's not assigned or because they can bail out or whatever. That the two-tier justice system has been that. And what we are to take away from Trump getting indicted is that no one is above the law. Trump and others keep saying, if they can do this to me, they're going to do it to you. They're already doing it to the proverbial you. We know that. The question was, can even someone in a position like president be held accountable? And at least as far as the indictment goes, the answer might be yes. We're going to talk about Judge Eileen Cannon after the break, and that's going to concern us in some ways. Last thing, and I talked about this on my stream. You might be wondering, am I going to demand Trump's imprisonment for life or something? You might notice that in the story so far, I haven't said Trump should be in prison or Trump should be in prison for X, Y, or Z amount of time, because that's not due process. All I want is due process, okay? We had enough evidence to go to a grand jury. The grand jury said there is enough evidence to indict. So we've gotten an indictment. So I'm not around here saying, oh, imprison Trump for life. What I want is, now that there has been an indictment, let's adjudicate it. And depending on its adjudication, either via a plea deal or a guilty verdict rather, then we can figure out what would be appropriate sentencing. And then let's talk about a sentence. I actually support law and order. I actually support due process. I'm not going around demanding people be imprisoned because I don't like their politics. I don't like Trump's politics. But what I want is the same thing that I want for Hunter Biden, if you believe he committed crimes, for Hillary Clinton, or whatever the case may be. Later in the program, we will talk about the difference between the Trump classified documents indictment and what they wanted Hillary locked up for. And if you come with an open mind, I can only imagine you will come away realizing there is almost no comparison between the two. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/The David Pakman Show. It is a massive program today, long and wide, that I can assure you. It is springtime. It's getting warm. We are all spending more time outside. Many sunscreens contain elements that the FDA has warned about: oxybenzone, avobenzone, homosalate, and others. These are absorbed into your bloodstream. They can irritate sensitive skin. They can be hormone disruptors. I just stay away from them, and I use mineral sunscreens. I do the same when I put sunscreen on my baby daughter. And our sponsor, Ginger Armor, makes the world's thinnest 100% mineral sunscreen. It works for all skin types, not just gingers, as the name might suggest. It rubs in clear on all skin tones, feels like nothing is on, with SPF 50+ protection. Ginger Armor also acts as a plant-based moisturizer with 21 simple, gentle ingredients from plants and minerals. It's good for you. It's good for the planet. It's more affordable than other sunscreens with similar quality ingredients. I also love that it's a small business made in the US, and they donate 1% of all sales to the 1% for the Planet charity. Go to gingerarmor.com, use code PAKMAN for 15% off. The link is down below. So many of you wrote to me over the weekend and said, David, can it really be that a Trump-appointed judge is going to be involved in overseeing Trump's own indictment? Tell me it's not going to happen, because that seems so biased and disastrous. Well, it is part of the story, and I want to talk about it with you today. The New York Times reports a Trump-appointed judge who showed him favor gets the documents case. A surprise assignment of Judge Eileen Cannon could be a setback for prosecutors as they unveiled a sweeping classified files indictment. Judge Cannon, 42, a Trump appointee, shocked legal experts across ideological lines last year by intervening in the investigation and issuing rulings favorable to Mr. Trump, only to be rebuked by a conservative appeals court. The chief clerk of the courts in Florida's Southern District has said that new cases there are randomly delegated to its judges, even if they are related to previous ones. It was not immediately clear whether Mr. Trump lucked out or if an exception was made. Either way, legal specialists said Judge Cannon's return was significant. For those asking the question, Slate has a very good piece by Mark Joseph Stern. Judge Eileen Cannon can absolutely sink the federal prosecution of Trump. And this reads, the federal criminal case against Donald Trump for mishandling classified documents will be overseen at least initially by Judge Eileen Cannon. This is excellent news for Trump and exceedingly bad news for special counsel Jack Smith. Cannon's total lack of discipline, combined with her evident incapacity to experience shame, renders her a uniquely favorable jurist for the former president. Indeed, if she maintains her grasp on this case, it is nearly impossible to envision Smith securing a conviction in her courtroom. This is, of course, the opinion of Mark Joseph Stern. This command marked the first time in the history of the Republic, that a federal judge had claimed the power to stop a pre-indictment criminal investigation into a suspect. Cannon's previous overreach provoked genuine shock in legal circles and fear in the intelligence community, as it effectively blocked officials from assessing the seized documents for national security risks. But Cannon wasn't finished. She agreed to Trump's request for a special master and appointed Raymond Dearie, a well-respected federal judge. After Dearie tried to bring some discipline to the case, Cannon immediately ran interference for Trump, overruling an order that would have required the former president to either disavow or stand by previous claims that FBI agents were planted at Mar-a-Lago. And this goes on and on and on. And Mark Joseph Stern then gets to the critical part. Imagine that Cannon does preside over this case. She has infinite tools at her disposal to thwart the prosecution at nearly every turn. Big swings like tossing out the whole case, very real possibility in her courtroom of chaos, can be appealed and overturned. But at every step, there are opportunities for sabotage. Cannon can try to rig voir dire to help the defense stack the jury with Trump supporters. She can exclude evidence and testimony that's especially damning to Trump. She can disqualify witnesses who are favorable to the prosecution. She can sustain the defense's frivolous objections and overrule the prosecution's meritorious ones. She can direct a verdict of acquittal to render the jury superfluous. She can declare a mistrial prematurely for any number of reasons. Okay, I think you get it. So the backstop here, and a couple of lawyers wrote to me and said, you know, David, everything that's being written about what Eileen Cannon can do is true. It's not wrong, but it ignores that there are checks and balances from other judges that the prosecution could recur to if necessary. And it is not as scary as some of these articles are making it out to be. It's still scary, but just not quite as scary as some articles are making it out to be. We're going to be following the Eileen Cannon sort of narrative and story because it is actually a potentially huge part of this prosecution. Maybe tomorrow, probably more after the arraignment on Wednesday, we will get back to this. Donald Trump did not stay home over the weekend, and he gave what I can remember as the most deflated, low-energy speech of his political career. Donald Trump actually gave two speeches over the weekend. He went to Georgia and spoke to the Republican convention there, and then he flew to North Carolina and spoke to the Republican convention there. I have never seen Trump like this before. Completely deflated. I'm just going to play some clips for you. These are only from his North Carolina speech. The Georgia speech was less remarkable in a sense. So we will just give you a sense of what was discussed, and even the crowd, like not really big other than when Trump said anti-transgender stuff, which we will get to. Here is Donald Trump just sort of ranting about how he went to UPenn and saying, look, they indicted me. They're
thinking I was a very good student at the Wharton School of Finance. Can you imagine? I wonder if they're proud of me. I got indicted. I wonder if they're saying, oh, that's wonderful. I've been indicted twice now in a couple of months. You know, when I was studying and when I was a very, very successful businessman, then I did The Apprentice and I did lots of books that were big sellers.
Yeah.
Even now I have books that are tremendous sellers. I never had this stuff in mind. I never had the word indictment. What's indictment mean? Sir, that's when you're extremely dishonest, sir.
So as you can see, blabbering and blathering aimlessly, and it only got worse. Trump talking about Ron DeSantis, criticizing him, and I guess the crowd's sort of like this. I don't know.
If I weren't leading, we wouldn't be talking about it, but we're leading by a lot. We're leading to sanctimonious by massive numbers. He's heading south quickly. No personality. You got to have a personality to win. He's got no personality.
Yeah.
And, remember.
I mean, even Trump's heart doesn't really seem in this ridiculous speech. And I'll tell you, if I was under the indictments that Trump is under, I wouldn't be able to go out there and give nice speeches and be upbeat. I actually get it. I actually get it. But this is important in order to understand that the things Trump's saying about, oh, this is going nowhere and there's nothing here. This is very serious stuff. And Donald Trump knows it on some level. Trump's saying that now it's actually hard to say DeSantis because he's gotten so used to using the nicknames for DeSantis.
56. That means we're leading Ron DeSanctimonious by 56. 69% for Trump, 13% for DeSantis, and Pence has 6. Once you get used to saying DeSantis, it's hard to say DeSantis. I was actually being interviewed. I was trying to be serious, and I called him DeSantis. I said, that's not good. But he's changing his name. Now it's DeSantis. And I put a little message out. Never change your name in the middle of a campaign.
I have to admit, that actually is funny. It seems one of the stupidest things you can do if you're trying to get name recognition is pronounce your name 2 different ways, DeSantis and DeSantis. Trump actually, in the midst of all the legal chaos, able to put together a little kernel of good political advice. Donald Trump then seemingly unable to stop talking about massive dumps. I know, guys, it's hard to believe. He's at it again with the dumps.
But we can stop them cold, and we will. And we would have had them stop cold, and they know that. And they cheated like dogs. They cheated like nobody's ever cheated before.
Like a dog.
You turned on your television at 10 o'clock, you would have said Pennsylvania's a lock. We were up by so much, a lock. All of a sudden, you see that big fat dump, that big dump at 3:02 or whatever it was in the morning. It's a disgrace what happened.
Beautifully put, right? I mean, truly a wordsmith. It's beyond parody. Trump then talking about how there is a taint in New England. It's a taint.
Such a big business, such a powerful business, and such an important business. New England has a liberal tint, or taint. I would say taint is a better word, actually.
Right.
But it's a little bit on the liberal side, they say. Such a big business, such a powerful business, and such an important business.
Yeah. Okay. Trump talking about the CNN town hall. And this was building to the highest energy moment of the night, which, of course, was an anti-trans moment. Like, it's almost like you're not going to get the crowd riled up about tax policy. You're not going to get the crowd riled up about getting people health care or dealing with the environment. You're going to get people riled up with anti-trans stuff. But in the midst of that, Trump commenting on the CNN town hall.
New England.
Sorry, this is the wrong clip. Here's the correct clip.
Did you see the town hall with CNN? They got one of the highest ratings they've had in like 11 years, and they end up firing the guy because it was Trump. Instead, right. They should celebrate. We had our highest ratings. You're supposed to get paid for high ratings, Richard. But they had one of the highest ratings they've had in many, many years. I was on with a young woman who was, I said, nasty. She was a very nasty woman, but it worked out very well. And they were all going, he owns you, get him off the air. They're screaming, AOC is screaming, he owns you, get him off the air, stop it. But you'd think if they had high ratings, that would be a big, he should ask for an increase. Instead, they fired him because I was allowed to put across our point of view. It's our.
There you go. And now you can see a guy using his smartphone to film Trump's entire speech. It's all so depressing. Here's the highest energy moment, and this won't surprise you. Trump's highest energy moment was when he talked about anti-trans stuff, and he even acknowledges, wow, people really like hearing this nonsense.
In critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children.
Standing ovation now.
It's amazing how strongly people feel about that. You see, I'm talking about cutting taxes. People go like that. Talk about transgender. Everyone goes crazy. Who
That is incredible.
would have thought 5 years ago you didn't know what the hell it was?
That is an unbelievable statement. Trump is really summarizing in that statement the absurdity of his own movement. They don't care about actual policy. They care about trans culture war, anti-woke nonsense. This is a revelation about what is animating the right today. Trump says, I talk about taxes, people barely clap. I talk about the trans stuff and people go absolutely crazy. This is the monster they built. And the question now is whether this is a monster that can get them a president in the Oval Office. I hope, and to some degree believe, that the answer is no. All of these clips will be available on all of our various platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Make sure you're following us wherever you like to consume your video content. We're going to take a quick break and then continue our coverage of this completely absurd, farcical weekend in American politics. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. Okay, let's look at a couple of other things from over the weekend. After or before or in the middle of Donald Trump's various speeches to the Georgia Republican Convention and the North Carolina Republican Convention, he went to restaurants. At one point, he went to a waffle restaurant. And I understand these sort of photo op things. DeSantis did it in a New Hampshire diner. This is sort of like what you do in American politics. Trump does it in the weirdest way, where he walks into a waffle spot in Georgia and starts yelling that we did nothing wrong. And usually when you go to the restaurants and you do this stuff, you just maybe order some waffles or something. Look at the cringeworthy nature of what he'll go in and just rant to waffle employees about I did nothing wrong. It's the strangest stuff. Look at this.
We did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong whatsoever. We did absolutely nothing wrong. Take a look at the Presidential Records Act. We did it by the book. Perfect. Except we have thugs and creeps running this country.
Right.
And it's a real problem for our country. But we're going to straighten it away. We're going to win the election big. And we're going to clean up the mess, and we're going to clean up the cancer, because that's what we have.
A very strong, somebody in the back is like, does this mean it's going to take a while to get my maple syrup? What a strange, there's a level of pomposity with just going through a place where people are having breakfast and starting to rant and rave about you did nothing wrong, I did nothing wrong. Here's another video. And again, I don't know if this is all the same restaurant. It seems he may have gone to different restaurants. In this one, it sounded like someone was trying to pray for Trump. This is serious cult stuff. Very, very serious cult stuff. And I don't know how the people in the restaurant aren't embarrassed for each other at the end of the day.
Only president ever. Our country is going to hell. We're not going to let it happen.
Oh my goodness. So in this one, there's a crowd around Trump. A woman on either standing on a table or piggyback yells something about this is my only president. And then Trump says the country is going to hell. It seems almost like a place you would sooner guess that this was a bar full of drunk people at 1 a.m. rather than a Waffle House or waffle restaurant with a failed former president. Then this is maybe the most telling Trumpian moment. A woman comes up to Trump to talk to Trump about Sergeant Major Pat Payne. Sergeant Major Pat Payne is someone that Trump awarded a Medal of Honor to in 2020 because Pat Payne was involved in freeing 75 ISIS-held hostages. Okay, that's a fine, totally reasonable thing. Trump seems visibly confused and asks if Pat Payne died from war injuries. It's like, no, dude, after he came back from releasing the 75 hostages, you gave him the Medal of Honor. And Trump seems so confused that he ends up asking if the woman could maybe draw Trump with muscles. It's beyond parody.
I am a Medal of Honor portrait artist. This is Sergeant Major Pat Payne, who you awarded the Medal of Honor. And this is actually his signature.
You can tell from Trump's nodding that he has not even the slightest recollection of this.
You think I could look like that if you did me?
Absolutely.
Give me that perfect jaw,
Absolutely.
all those muscles and everything else.
Absolutely,
So how did he pass away?
No, he's actually currely still alive.
Did he pass away? No, he's alive.
He is currently active duty. He's about, I think he's in his 40s. He's still maxing out his fitness.
Is he injured or
exams.
anything?
No, sir. No,
You understand what's happening, right? Trump has quite literally no idea who she's talking about, who the picture is of, no memory. Injured. He's acting like this is some old war veteran or someone killed. Freed 75 hostages, and then you gave him the Medal of Honor.
That's unusual.
Yeah,
The Medal of Honor guys usually are in pretty rough shape, right? Beautiful job you
Thank
did.
you so much.
Trump seemingly confusing the Purple Heart with the Medal of Honor. I mean, I don't know.
Thank you.
I want to look like that guy.
So Trump wants the muscles, but completely. I know this is a Kafka-esque moment. I'm sorry, folks. I have to say it is a Kafka-esque moment. And then lastly, here again, just people screaming, and it's all a big to-do.
How are you? Look, we have the fake news media. How, everything good? I like the hat. You did a good job before with the pictures. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming. It's a nice crowd.
I love you, no! I love you!
How are the waffles here? How are the waffles? Are they good? 'Cause I'm
You
gonna
need
try
to get
one.
pecans on it, Mr. President.
Okay, the waffles are good, and Trump's going to try one. So, almost worse than the Ron DeSantis diner visit in New Hampshire a couple of weeks ago. Trump twice indicted in the midst of low-energy, confused speeches where he tells corrosive lies and says things that are untrue, showing up at a waffle restaurant and making a complete and total fool of himself. All right, now with that out of the way, let's get to something serious. William Barr was Donald Trump's attorney general. And William Barr, I do not consider a friend of the progressive movement. William Barr is not someone I would even remotely consider for attorney general. But William Barr does have some legal expertise. There is no question about that. And William Barr went on Fox News Sunday and said that if half of the new federal indictment against Trump is true, Trump is toast. This is super interesting stuff. It wildly triggered Donald Trump. Let's listen to what Barr had to say. And he's making a lot of sense here.
What about this chief argument that comes up for the president's allies and his legal team that this should have been handled under the Presidential Records Act, not this Espionage Act charge and other federal statutes that were used here?
Well, it started out under the Presidential Records Act and the archives trying to retrieve documents that Trump had no right to have. But it quickly became clear that what the government was really worried about were these classified and very sensitive documents. I was shocked by the degree of sensitivity of these documents and how many there were, frankly.
Yeah.
And so the government's agenda was to get those, protect those documents and get them out. And I think it was perfectly appropriate to do that. It was the right thing to do. And I think the counts under the Espionage Act that he willfully retained those documents are solid counts. Now, I do think we have to wait and see what the defense says and what proves to be true. But I do think that even half what Andy McCarthy said, which is if even half of it is true, then he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment, and it's very, very damning.
Okay, that is an extraordinary statement. And it also sort of deals with one of the claims that so-called legal experts like Mark Levin are making, which is that this stuff isn't even really related to the criminal world of law, that this is all just Presidential Records Act subject to that. And William Barr says, sure, initially it was subject to that, but based on the evidence in the indictment, which includes alleged obstruction and it includes all of these other things that Trump is accused of doing, it becomes criminal. And that's it. It's short. You can say until you're blue in the face, this is presidential record stuff. It went criminal when Trump covered it up, tried to keep the documents, potentially tried to destroy documents, et cetera, et cetera. And that is absolutely very, very serious stuff. Then we go to Fox News' favorite legal commentator, Jonathan Turley. Jonathan Turley has been defending Trump reflexively for years now on so many different issues. Even Jonathan Turley says this is a very damning indictment. Listen to this.
The president goes on to say, well, what happens if we just don't respond at all to the subpoena, I guess, or don't play ball with them? The president goes on to say, wouldn't it be better if we just told them we don't have anything here? Well, look, isn't it better if there are no documents? They've got these conversations that were memorialized by the president's attorneys. There's also this recording of him where he talks about this plan that's believed an attack plan against Iran. I mean, they've got a lot of information in this, Jonathan.
No, it is an extremely damning indictment. There are indictments that are sometimes called narrative or speaking indictments. These are indictments that are really meant to make a point as to the depth of the evidence. There are some indictments that are just bare bones. This is not. The special counsel knew that there would be a lot of people who were going to allege that the Department of Justice was acting in a biased or politically motivated way. This is clearly an indictment that was drafted to answer those questions. It's overwhelming in details. And, the Trump team should not fool itself. These are hits below the waterline. These are witnesses who apparently testified under oath, gave statements to federal investigators, both of which can be criminally charged if they're false. Those witnesses are directly quoting the president in encouraging others not to look for documents or allegedly to conceal them. It's damaging. And the key here to keep in mind is that every case I've ever been involved with, the indictment was a heart stopper. These are written by lawyers who are trying to convict a client. Every indictment I've ever dealt with has fallen apart to some degree once we look more carefully at what the evidence may be. But this is not an indictment that you can dismiss.
All right. So there is Jonathan Turley, even with his hemming and hawing, saying this is very serious stuff. Back to William Barr. William Barr putting the blame for all of this squarely on Trump. And that's where it should be.
So, and we can't forget here that this entire thing came about because of reckless conduct of the president. If he had just turned over the documents, which I think every other person in the country would have done.
True.
They're the government's documents. They're official records. They're not his personal records. Battle plans for an attack on another country or Defense Department documents about our capabilities are in no universe Donald J. Trump's personal documents.
And then lastly from William Barr, Trump's claims that other presidents did the same thing. Barr debunks it. Good for him. To his credit, he is undoing every single one of these Trump arguments.
The sock drawer case with President Clinton, they'll point to these and say, listen,
so there are two big lies, I think, that are out there right now. One is, these other presidents took all these documents. Those were situations where they arranged with the archives to set up special space under the management control and security provided by the archivist to temporarily put documents until the libraries were ready. Right. These were not people just putting them in their basement, okay? And the second thing that the president, this idea that the president has complete authority to declare any document personal is obvious. It's facially ridiculous. That opinion had to do with the distinction between official records, which are records prepared by government agencies for the purpose of government action, and personal documents as opposed to official documents, which are things prepared by the president, such as a diary or notes, which are not used in the government's deliberations. And yes, as to the second class, stuff that the president himself generates, the president has some discretion. But these are official documents. It's inarguable.
Yep. Listen, William Barr, you don't have to like him to recognize that he is on much stronger legal footing here than a random Fox News commentator indignantly saying there's nothing here. William Barr is right. And that's why it so triggered Donald Trump when he said this. Let's talk about that briefly next. Donald Trump exploded on his own former Attorney General William Barr, calling him a gutless pig, because William Barr gave a sober and sensible legal analysis, which indicated the indictment against Trump is very serious. Trump's early arguments about how other presidents did the same thing aren't very good, and that Trump is toast if even half of the indictment is accurate. In response, Donald Trump, losing his mind on Truth Central, posting, quote, "Virtually everyone is saying that the capital I indictment is about election interference and should not have been brought, except Bill Barr, a disgruntled former employee and lazy attorney general who was weak and totally ineffective. He doesn't mean what he's saying. It's just misinformation. Barr's doing it because he hates Trump for firing him. He was deathly afraid of the radical left when they said they would impeach him. He knows the indictment is bull. Turn off Fox News when that gutless pig is on." And again, when you listen to what William Barr says, and then you see that Trump rebuts none of the actual legal claims, and Trump is not a lawyer, and Trump has no idea what's being said, in this particular case, doesn't mean you have to like either of them. I believe William Barr's analysis comes much closer to getting to the heart of this indictment than does Trump's, which is it was election interference and I did nothing wrong. After the break, we will look at Lindsey Graham subjected to just very light questioning about these issues. Wild, wild stuff. Quick break and back with that. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has occasionally been one of the strongest and most unhinged defenders of President Donald Trump in the past, sometimes screaming, sometimes crying and becoming indignant, sometimes saying, "You've just got to send Trump money and maybe me as well." Well, Lindsey Graham appeared yesterday on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, and it is an absolute delight to see, but also disturbing because we know many of the MAGA people are going to buy these arguments. On multiple occasions, George Stephanopoulos attempted to get Lindsey Graham to answer really simple questions about Trump. And Lindsey Graham went all but her emails, quite literally talking about Hillary Clinton. Let's look at the first clip. Here is a very simple question. Do you stand by Trump did nothing wrong?
Donald Trump has said repeatedly that he did nothing wrong. Do you believe that?
Well, here's what I believe. We live in an America where if you're the Democratic candidate for president, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, you can set up a private server in your basement to conduct government business. And when an investigation is had about your activity, no, let me finish.
Oh,
but you didn't answer the question.
That was ridiculous. Well, yeah, I'm trying to answer the question from a Republican point of view. That may not be acceptable on this show.
Well, it's not an answer, right? Do you agree Trump did nothing wrong? Hillary Clinton. Wait, I'd like you to answer I am answering the question from a Republican point of view. Whoa. Okay. George Stephanopoulos tried again and said, there are audio recordings here. And Lindsey figures out a way again to talk about Hillary Clinton.
There is an audio tape of Donald Trump saying he knows this is secret information. He knows he's sharing it with other people. How is that okay?
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay to take a hammer to a BlackBerry. I think none of this is okay.
So then referring again to Hillary Clinton, acid washing hard drives and taking hammers to BlackBerries or whatever it was she was accused of. So a couple different things here. First of all, It is not a defense. I'm going to deal with the Hillary Clinton allegation specifically, even though I know it's like we're a decade late on the whole thing and he's still talking about it. But give me a moment to lay this all out. It is not a defense to say because other prosecutors in other matters at other times made different charging decisions after other investigations related to other possible charges. That has nothing to do with Trump. And it's sort of like if I was arrested for whatever, right? If I was arrested for attempted murder, and then I say someone else 10 years ago in a different state was investigated under different circumstances for attempted murder, and they weren't charged. That doesn't mean anything. It's not actually a defense. Second part of this, Hillary Clinton was accused of being extremely careless in her handling of classified information. She was not accused of intentionally disclosing information. There is no evidence she lied to investigators. She cooperated and handed over tens of thousands of emails, et cetera, et cetera. Trump is accused of willfully risking national security secrets and conspiring with lawyers and others to conceal documents and make false statements. He did not cooperate with the investigation. He hid the documents for months at his house in boxes near his toilet. Hillary Clinton was cleared twice by the FBI of criminal charges. So the situations aren't actually analogous, but it doesn't matter to people like Lindsey Graham. This next segment is going to be the totality of my coverage of the Turning Point USA Women's Summit. Many of you sent me clips from this summit, Lauren Boebert and others speaking. It was a totally insane event. Turning Point USA is this on-campus right-wing organization. They did an event over the weekend, which was specifically for young right-wing women, I guess. I'm just going to look at one piece of it with you so we can say we looked at the sort of stuff that was going on there. I'm going to play a clip for you where a woman in the audience tells a story about trans people in the bathroom with her. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene goes transphobic and says, listen, trans people in bathrooms, they're in there to have sex with you. That's why they're there.
Last year, I got my modesty and dignity taken away from me when I found out that my school had put multiple biological males in my locker room and bathrooms, some of which will just sit there and watch me and the other girls change.
Okay, that's already not okay. If they love to pretend that this is all about trans people. Anybody who just hangs out in a locker room or a bathroom, checking people out, can be reported. It doesn't matter what their gender identity is. Either way, the behavior isn't allowed, which immediately makes me skeptical about this story.
We're just trying to dress in peace and be able to go to our PE classes. Me and my dad made quite a fuss last year at my school and in my community, and I have spoken in front of my very woke school board many times. However, nothing seems to happen, even though they are violated thousands of girls every day. Do you have any advice for me as a 16-year-old trying to change the mind of adults and make a difference?
Wow. First of all, thank you for your courage.
Right.
Because,
Thank you.
Because when you're speaking out in your school, to your school board, you and your father and your family, and you're standing up against men who are really a bunch of perverts in your locker room, in your bathroom, because they want to have sex with you. That's why they're in there. That's real. They're not saying, oh, I identify as a woman and I'm only attracted to men. That is a lie. These are sexual predators. They're sexual predators.
There are statistically almost zero incidents of the kind that they would have you believe are rampant. It just doesn't happen.
Okay. My advice for you is your safety is number one. Ladies, your safety is number one. And that when you all join together and make that known and refuse to accept these.
This is all so disgusting. As I've said before, do you really think that actual violent predators are going to be dissuaded by the gender sign on the bathroom door? It's absurd and ridiculous. And of course, when then you go further and say, well, there must be hundreds or thousands or at least dozens of incidents where, based on a falsely stated gender identity, someone hid out in a bathroom and then assault, you find out that it is essentially non-existent. And it is all part of the story that they use to prop up this anti-trans paranoia that they are now obsessed with and that they are raising money around at the end of the day. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here's a smart caller. This caller thinks he may know the truth about the latest Trump indictment. Listen to this.
Hi, David. I think this indictment of Trump on 7+ counts is just a distraction from Obamagate. I mean, there's still so many unanswered questions, and there's such a mountain of evidence that proves it too. Like, why are people focusing on things like sexual assault charges and stealing classified documents when instead they could be focusing on Obamagate?
Absolutely. Obamagate is the biggest crime of the century. I don't know of which century, maybe this one, maybe last one. It's never really clear. Obamagate is extraordinarily serious. I also don't know what it is. And clearly, all of this stuff that's going on, you know, a jury finding Trump responsible for sexual assault and defamation of E. Jean Carroll, a 37-count indictment involving pictures of classified documents around Trump's toilet like a fort. All of it is a trumped up, for lack of a better term, distraction from Obamagate, which they don't want you to know about. All right, let me put my brain back in. On the bonus show today, the Supreme Court has unexpectedly upheld a provision prohibiting racial gerrymandering. Some are surprised by it. Unabomber Ted Kaczynski has died in prison, reportedly by suicide at age 81. We will discuss the story and his legacy. We will also talk about the White House being accused of flag code violations because of their Pride Month display. This is getting so pathetic from these folks who have no issue putting the flag on a bandana that says MAGA and doing the exact same thing. Now, all of a sudden, they're concerned because of the pride flag. Okay, all of those stories and more will be on today's bonus show.
The United States will be the first nation to land an astronaut on Mars.
We are taking the bonus show to Mars and beyond. You can sign up at joinpacman.com. You can use the coupon code indicted again. That's right. Indicted again, a self-explanatory coupon code. Use it, save a bunch of money, get the bonus show. We will see you then. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. It's springtime, you're outside more. It is time for sunscreen, but stay away from the chemical sunscreens with ingredients that can irritate skin, cause hormonal disruption, or worse. Instead, use mineral sunscreen by Ginger Armor, which is just as effective. You'll get 15% off with code PACMAN at gingerarmor.com. The link is down below.